Yeah, so as far as learning things note for note, yeah, I spent a lot of time doing that for sure when I was a kid. I remember learning "You Shook Me All Night Long" AC/DC note for note, and thought that was super cool. And I spent a lot of time learning Hubert Sumlin and Magic Sam and Otis Rush, and then a lot of B.B. King and Albert King. Then I got to Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Certainly knew every Stevie Ray Vaughan solo note for note at the time when I was a kid. Uh, yeah, I would sit in my room learning that stuff over and over, playing along with the records, and that was, I'd come home from school. That's what I did. That was my after school, my before school. It was guitar, guitar, guitar all the time, and yeah, I would work on that stuff until I started kind of wanting expanding my horizons, and I got into Danny Gatton and this guy Roy Lanham. Somebody gave me a tape of the two, and that blew my mind. So I started learning that stuff, and then I started wanting to learn, like, hey, what's Charlie Parker? What is that stuff? So I got the Charlie Parker Omnibook, and I started trying to read that and figure out some of those heads and licks and the solos and stuff, and expanding my world, I guess. So yeah, a lot of note for note stuff. It depends on how into it I was. If like with Magic Sam, Otis Rush, BB King, Albert King, I was totally trying. I wanted to get their sound. So if I'm playing, Magic Sam, I was trying to get his vibrato down and his attack, especially Albert King and BB, their vibratos, and yeah. But I mean, I didn't so much with Stevie try to copy his feel. I just wanted to learn all those parts. They just blew me away. All his solos, and his tone was so great, and yeah. Hendrix, I didn't. Yeah, I just tried to learn all the songs. I wasn't trying to copy his inflection on everything. Danny Gatton, partially because his part of his brilliance is also so tied to technique that you had to kind of cop some of that technique to even be able to play some of those things. So yeah. Yeah, for me, it was certainly blues mostly. It was all those guys I mentioned, plus my parents listened to a lot of Stones, Beatles. Uh, my mom was big in soul, so Otis Redding, a lot of Motown, Stax type stuff. My dad was not like a huge Zeppelin guy, so I wasn't hearing Zeppelin all the time. Took till later till I really got into them. And just being honest, I wasn't a big Clapton fan or Fleetwood Mac or Jimmy Page. The British stuff kind of escaped me for a long time. I was more listening to American, to Chicago blues. That's what I was listening to. So it wasn't that influential on me in my formative years. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, kind of when do you know you kind of got something going on, or when do you feel like you've unlocked the magic treasure box, I guess, of guitar, or even just feeling like maybe you could be a professional for real. It's different for everybody, but I remember, I just spent, hours and hours every day playing guitar, playing guitar, playing guitar. And when I was 13, I was trying to play in some bands, and all the kids that I would go play in their garages with, all they wanted to play was Metallica or Slaughter or whatever was 80s rock and roll. And not that I was totally against that, but I wanted to, you know, I was a blues guy and a rock and roll guy. I wanted to blow on some stuff. I was trying to improvise all the time, and so I begged my parents to take me to these blues jams, right, with adults. So the first one I went to was at a famous club in Fort Lauderdale called the Musicians Exchange, which no longer exists, but been around forever, and everybody had played there. And so we go. It's a Monday night, a school night. I think I was still in eighth grade at the time, and yeah, you sign the list, and everybody got to play two songs with the house band. So I got up and played two songs. Can't remember the songs. It was probably whatever. It might have been Walking the Dog, Rufus Thomas, and one other song. I can't remember. And I was short. I was 12. I was a short little kid. Had a baseball cap on, probably a Yankees cap, and I had my Charvel at the time. That was my main guitar, or it could have been my SG. I had a SG too, and the audience went crazy because I was a little kid playing guitar. And I could actually play. I wasn't like amazing, but you know, but that was it. That was my moment. Like the second the audience clapped for what I did, I was like, I'll never do anything else ever again for the rest of my life. Like that was it. And as far as in your actual playing, when you're kind of got it there, so after that I started growing my abilities, and I went to these other jams, and people would start coming to see me, this little kid, because it was a gimmick, and this one band asked me if I'd play with them because they thought they'd get more gigs if they had a little kid playing with them, which was true. So I started playing with this one band all the time, and that was kind of, I knew once I made my first $75, I was like, I knew I could do this. If I was already doing it then, I knew I could go somewhere. So I started saving for my first real Strat. No, I listen to guitar all the time still. I mean, it's the greatest thing in the world. But I listen to tons of other instruments too. Like if you just point blank said, "Who's your favorite soloist?" I'd say Kenny Garrett. Like he's my hero. If I could figure out, not even his vocabulary, if I could just figure out how to be as expressive of a musician as he is when he improvises, I feel like I'd be on top of the world. But yeah, I still I grew up, I after I got through my all my blues and did my homework, and I listened. Then I got into Danny Gatton and Roy Lanham and Albert Lee and Brent Mason, and the Helicasters and all that stuff. Then I started getting into, then it was like, well, man, maybe I really should have already been listening to Wes Montgomery and Charlie Christian and Kenny Burrell. I was listening to Kenny Burrell because he was more bluesy, but started getting more into that stuff. Joe Pass and Jim Hall, and then I got to Schofield, and that was a big thing. It was like, okay, this guy's really something special. I was already hip to Robin because he was coming from the blues world. I was already hip to Larry Carlton. He was an enormous influence on me, especially in my rhythm playing, because the stuff he did on session work was just blew my mind. And it's still every time I find new players to watch all the time. It's like, yeah, there's always something new to learn. Yeah, I try to steal stuff from other instruments, especially horn players. Yeah, sax, trumpet, trombone players. Listen to these New Orleans guys, even the new guys like Trombone Shorty and those guys, just blowing out of their mind, and with such soulful phrasing. And like I said, Kenny Garrett, he was big. Charlie Parker, Coltrane, Dizzy, Miles, that stuff. I listen to that stuff all the time, just trying to glean anything I can out of I like banjo a lot, so I listen to a lot of older Bella Fleck, like Newgrass Revival stuff, and you know, yeah, I'll listen to any instrument and try to pick something up. Only stuff with strings. I only play instruments with strings. I play bass. I can play mandolin. I can play banjo a little bit, real banjo and real tuning. Uh, I'm working on pedal steel. That's my next goal, to really get that down. But that's pretty much it. I can play drums this much, and I can't play piano at all. It's like a foreign language.